Hi, I'm Lee Waller, and welcome to this tutorial on Unreal Engine's motion design tools. I'm going to walk through the process of creating this animated logo. I'll look at creating the text and a couple of different methods of working with the text. I'll create a couple of materials, import some materials from Quixel Bridge, and create an emissive neon material. And last, work with some lighting. In a separate tutorial, I will cover adding and animating cameras as well as animating the logo. So I'm going to start from the Epic Games launcher. I'm going to launch Unreal. I'm in version 5.42, and that'll take a moment to launch, but I'm going to start fresh with a whole new project. I'm going to go to the Film, Video, and Live Events tab right there, go to a blank project. I am going to add in the starter content and also add in ray tracing. Make sure down here that I know where I'm going to save my project, and I will go ahead and label this. And hit OK. That's going to start the process of adding in that content. So here we are in the default scene. There's a few things that I need to take care of. First thing we need to do is add the motion design plugin. So I'm going to jump up here to settings, and I'm going to go to plugins, and we will locate motion design. You'll see right there, Motion Design Experimental. We're going to click that on, and yes, we do need to restart. So let's go ahead and do that. If you get this update option right there, just click on update. That happens quite often. I'm going to go ahead and close out our plugins, and we'll get down to our default scene right here. And now we can jump up here to selection mode, and we can jump into motion design mode. And I'm going to click right up here also, create a motion design scene. That adds in a number of panels that we will be using. I'm now going to work on this scene right here because a lot of this here I don't want or need. So I'm going to jump up here to the motion design outliner tab and just select all of that right there and delete it. I'll now use this create defaults button right there. Click on it, and we're going to add these default actors in. We're going to spawn those, and you'll see now here in our motion design tab that we have those objects in there. And what that mostly does is sets up a camera for us, a post-process volume that has to do with lighting along with the skylight and the directional light. We'll be coming back to these three and making some adjustments later, but for right now, that'll get us started as far as lighting goes. From here, I'm going to add in some more content, materials that we need for later on in the tutorial. To do that, I'm going to go into right up here to the Add Actor button. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to go to Quixel Bridge. This is Epic's collection of over 14,000 assets that are free to use in your projects. It uses the same login for Epic to log into Quixel Bridge. So once you've logged in, you'll have access to these assets. I'm going to go to surfaces right here, and I know the materials that I want. So I'm going to look for this brushed aluminum right here, that one right there, and I'm going to click on it. I've already downloaded it. But to download, all you'll need to do is select the quality that you want. I've downloaded that. If you haven't, go ahead and hit the download. Once it's done downloading it, then you'll want to add it to the project. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to the project. This is the content browser, and it's showing that it has now added that to my project. So I'll go for the next one. Click these off and search for. And again, you can see I've already downloaded that one, but I am going to add it in to my project again. And that one is added now to the project. And there's one more texture that I need. And from other projects I've added in, that's not the one I want. So I'm going to scroll down. You'll see all the different brick textures that they have. And I know that I've already, there it is right there. So I'm going to select that one right there. and I'm going to add it in. All right, I'm going to close out Quixel Bridge. And to take a look real quick in the content drawer down here, you'll see that I now have a folder called Megascans, and in there surfaces, and there are the 3 materials and texture that I added in. Now for this logo design, I am using a particular font. So to find that font, I've gone to a browser, opened up a Google search, and it's Velocette, Velocette font. And you can download that from the font website. I'm going to click right there. Just click on the download button there, download the font, then install it into your Windows machine, and you'll be ready. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's start building this logo. First thing I do want to work with is the font for the 2 large V's. And so to add a text in, I'm going to go over here to my actors, and there is the text actor right there. I'm going to click on it once and then click on it a second time. And there is my first text actor. I'm going to make a few adjustments to my viewer here. Real quick, I'm going to turn off the grids, and I'm also going to turn off this snapping right here. And then I'm also going to turn off snapping up here. I don't need all of that. And now in the motion design outliner, you'll see the avalanche text actor right there. I'm going to click on it twice very slowly to activate that so that I can label this. And I'm going to label this V upper. This will be my top V for visual. From the motion design outliner, you'll see down here below all of our details for the selected actor. And down here in the text option box, I'll change that from the word text to just the uppercase V right there. And I'll come down now to the motion design font, and I will select that. And I will look for VEL, the font that I want, Velocette right there. And I'm going to select it. Now I'm going to go ahead and add that too, because you'll see, let me close that up. You'll see that we have the project fonts right here. These are the fonts that are in the Unreal Engine project, and then everything else is on my system. If I want to move this project, or even when I reopen the project, if I have not added it to the project fonts, it won't be here. I'll have to reload it from the system fonts. So I'm going to click on this button right here to import system font to the project. We have a few more adjustments to make. So I'm going to slide down here to the alignment. And I'm just going to go ahead and center align that. I'm not going to do any kerning or line space or word spacing. I will jump down here to the geometry options, and we are going to extrude this and add a little bit of a bevel to it. So I'm going to extrude this to 2. And then on the bevel, I'm going to set that to 0.5. And then I'm going to move back up to the top, and I do need to increase the size of this font. I'm going to make sure that this is locked so that it constrains all of the sizes here, so that I set them once to 4. And I'm going to make one more position adjustment on the text. Jump back in here to location, and I'm going to set our location to 0 by a -135 by 41. And that'll set up our location for the first V. And to hopefully save us some time, I'm going to go ahead and add the materials to this V. So I'm going to scroll down. You'll see here first we have a style. We're going to bypass that and not worry about that. But we have now on this V a front material, bevel material, extrude, and back material. So we're going to add those materials in. So on our front material here, we're going to use that brushed aluminum. So I'm going to click on our browser right there and type that in to search for it. And select that. And that has changed right there. And then for our bevel material, we're going to use that blued steel. Select that. As well for our extrude. And also on the back, we're going to use the brushed aluminum. Now, one issue that I have found, and I'm not sure if this is a problem that needs to be fixed or if it's just something that I'm not understanding quite yet, but if I close this level out, or if I close out Unreal Engine and I come back to the project, it will default all of these materials to this first material. And so I have to reapply any other material that is different. To fix that, what I have found at this point is I'm just going to go through and I'm going to add a keyframe for each of these properties. And then when I open back up, they'll be the correct materials. So I'm just going to click on each one of these very quickly. And then you'll see down here in the sequencer that it has added those in. Let me bring that up. And I'm just going to close all of that up and just try to keep it out of the way. We will need this in the sequencer a little bit later when we want to animate it. So that's not that big of a problem. You may have noticed that when I set those keyframes that the V jumped back to the center of the viewer. The reason for that is it has also set keyframes for the transform properties, for location, rotation, and scale. So I don't want those, so I'm going to just drag, select those, and delete them. I'm going to close that up, and we'll come back to that later. Now what I'll do is go back up here to my location and reset those. Again, on the Y to a negative 135, and on the Z to 41. For the second V, I'm just going to now duplicate the first V, select it, and Control D. There is our second V, and I'm going to just select it once so that I can rename this to V lower. And so now we have two of them in our sequencer, and we do have two of them in the viewer. I'm going to select the lower one, and we need to adjust its location. And so on the location for that, X I'm going to leave to 0, and Y I'm going to set it to a negative 167. And Z, I'm going to set that to a negative 70. Now we'll create the text for the rest of the two words. Again, using the text actor, I'm going to click on it twice and then select that text actor. And I'm going to go ahead and change this. This will be the top word visual. So this will be ISUAL. And then I'm also going to need to change that right here, ISUAL. And change the font. And there is the font that I need. And I'm going to change the alignment right there to center. And I'll jump down and go ahead and on the extrusion there, we'll set that to 4 and the bevel to 1. And then I'm going to jump back up, and on our size for these, they'll be set to 1.95. And then I'm going to relocate this to, on my X, I'm going to leave it at 0. And then on my Y, I'm going to set that to 16. And on the Z, I'll set that to 61. You may have noticed that the slant to the second part of the word is not lining up. We're going to adjust that in just a moment. Let me go ahead and get the other part of the second word in. I'm going to duplicate this, Control D, and then I'll relabel that to, and then jump down here to the text box and adjust that. And we will change its position to X0, 70 on the Y, and negative 12 on the Z axis. Now let's add our materials in. We will slide down here to our materials options. And just like we did for the two V's, we'll add those in. So, brushed aluminum right there, and I'll jump down here to this one also. And then for the other two, blued steel. And I'll need to do that for varmints. So now that I've added my materials, one thing that I want to do is I want to adjust the slant of the second part of each word to match up to the slant of the V right here. Now, unfortunately, in our operators, in our modifiers there's nothing there to accomplish that, nor is there anything in the settings of the text to do that. To accomplish this, what I'm going to need to do is convert these two pieces here to static meshes and make the adjustment that way. An issue with that is once I do that, I can no longer adjust the text itself. We're locked into it. So to be on the safe side, I'll duplicate both of these and only convert one of them to a static mesh, and I'll have the other one as a backup if I need it. So I'm going to select both of these and duplicate, Control D, and let's see, select both of these, and I'm going to drag these second two down below everything just to try to get them out of the way, and I'll hide them. And now we'll come back to the originals, and I'm going to convert these. Selecting this first one for visual, I'll jump over here from the motion design mode to the modeling mode. And I'm going to go to Transform tab right here, select it, and I'm going to convert. Click on Convert, and it's converting it to a static mesh, and I'll hit Accept. You'll notice here now that it has broken this word out into each of its individual letters. I don't want that, so I'm going to merge them together. Again, back over here under Transform, I'll select Merge and hit Accept. And now it's combined all of those right there, and I'll change that back to. And so now this is ready for us to slant. To slant this, we're going to deform it. And again, in our modeling mode, we'll go to the Deform tab, select it, and we're going to use Lattice right here. We'll click on Lattice, and we'll make a few adjustments to the Lattice mode here. Here's the Lattice, and it allows us from these different points to adjust this. Now, there's too many points in here, so I'm going to reduce the number of points for this lattice. To do that, on the X, Y, and Z resolution, I'm going to set all of those to 2. And you'll see now that we have just this box around our text. I'm going to click and drag around these upper 4 vertices here. It may be difficult to see, but there's actually 4 up there. And I can move this manually here. But if I want to dial this in exact, I can come down here to this box right here, and I'm going to hit the delta mode, and then I'll adjust this to 33. Now that slant is matching up to the slant of the V. I'll accept that and then go through the same process for the lower word. Select it. In my modeling mode right here, I'll go to Transform. I'm going to convert this to static mesh. I'll accept that. Again, it breaks it out into all of its individual letters. We want to merge those back together. So we will click on Merge, Accept, and we'll relabel this. And now we can slant this. So we'll go into the Deform options, click on Lattice, and again, set at 2 resolution on all of them. We can click and drag on those upper vertices there. And in Delta mode right there, we can adjust this to 33. And so now we've slanted that text. We'll accept it, and we can continue on. So I want to take a look at the original animation, and let's see what we've gotten so far. So we have our first 2 set of text completed. Now what we'll do is we'll begin to build the background. We have several pieces here. We have this yellow background here. We have a blue outer line. We have this small piece right here. And then we also have our neon ring. So we'll take a look at how to create all of those. And then we'll also finish it out with these 4 bars. I'm going to jump back into motion design mode right there. And I will need to add in for this background 2D shape ellipse. So I'm going to click on that once and then click on it a second time slowly. And that adds in that shape for us. We're going to make some adjustments to this, of course. With that ellipse selected, I'll go into my details here and drop down to the shape size right here. And we'll make some adjustments to this. They're locked together right now, so I'm going to set those to free. And we can adjust the size of this on our X and Y axis separately. For this, I want to set the X to 475 and the Y to 308. And then I'm going to rotate this a little bit. So I'm going to need to jump back up here to rotation. And I'm going to rotate this on the x-axis to 26 degrees. I'm sure you noticed that the ellipse is in front of our text. And so that is one thing we have to keep in mind with all of this. We need to push this backwards away from us. And to do that on our x-axis, we're going to adjust this to a property of 16, and that pushes it behind all of our text. And then I'm also going to slide it over just a little bit. So 16 by 6 by 0 on our location. And we'll need to layer the rest of our objects also. So that's why I'm going ahead and trying to push this back a little bit further. I'm going to jump back down here to our sides. The number of sides is what makes this circular. It's set to 64 right now. I'm going to go ahead and increase that to 96. Now to extrude this, we're going to need to add a modifier to it. So up here in our operator stack, if for some reason you do not have this operator stack right here, jump over here to the far left side, click on operator stack, and it will open up. We'll jump into operator stack. With that selected, we'll go to modifiers, and you'll see right down here under geometry that we can now extrude this. So let's add that modifier. We'll need to adjust a little bit so that we can see that modifier. And it is set to a depth of 30 centimeters right now. We don't need that much. Let me go ahead and show you. So I'll navigate around to show you the extrusion there. So I'm going to adjust that extrusion down to 10 centimeters. Go back into my main camera. And that's the only adjustment I'm going to make to that for right now. We will use this. Let me go back into the Motion Designer outliner right there, and we will label that main ellipse. We're going to use this main ellipse to create an outline. So let's go ahead and duplicate that. Make sure that it is selected. Hit Control D. And I'm going to hide this for right now so that we can see the changes that we're making to our outline. Let's label that outline. And let's go into the operator stack for it. This is a little weird, but we're going to get rid of that extrude right now, but we're going to bring it back in just a moment. It's just the way this is working. So let's delete the extrude. We'll go into our modifiers and we'll jump down to outline and add that in. And so now you see how outline is working. It has removed the inside and it's just creating geometry on the outside. Let's set our outline distance to 7. And now we'll jump into our modifiers again. We're going to add back in the extrude. And we'll bring down the extrusion depth to 12. And we're going to add one more modifier to this. I want to bevel the edge of this. So back into add modifiers, bevel, and we'll scroll up and take a look at that. And we'll set this to 1.5 by 2. So there's our outline. And again, we've added in the outline modifier, set it to 7. We've added the extrude back in, set that to 12. And we've added a bevel in and set the inset to 1.5 and the iterations to 2 right there. Go back to the Motion Designer outliner and we'll add back in our main ellipse. So now we have those two properties separate and we can add separate materials to them. I do want to adjust the location for our outline real quick. Select it and let me bring back up our details, go to our location. And for that, we want to set the location on the x-axis to 14 and everything else will stay the same. All right, let's add our materials to these two objects. For the outline, I'm going to go here and select Asset because I want to add in that blued steel. And for the inside of the ellipse, I'm going to create a material. I'll go over here to my content drawer and make sure I have content selected right there. I'm going to add a folder. So I'm going to right click anywhere in this space and add a new folder. And I'm going to label that materials. Open that up and right click again in this area and add material. And I'll label this yellow. Double click on it. And here is my material editor. I'm going to pull from right here and add in a constant, vector 3. That's going to be my color. And then I'll add a couple of other, one for metallic, and this will be just a single constant, and one for roughness, also a single constant. And I'll go back up to my color and double click on the swatch right there, and then I'll dial that into a yellow. See, maybe a little too bright, so I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. All right, I'm going to go with that for right now. Hit OK. And I'll apply this, save it, and close this out. And I'll apply that yellow to the main ellipse. Drop down here to Material Type, select Asset again, and we will search for that. So now I want to add in our 3 bars down here. To start off, I'm going to use a 2D shape rectangle. So I'm going to click once and then click a second time. That drops in our rectangle. I'm going to need to make some shape size adjustments to it. So over here in the Details panel, I'll go to Shape. Make sure that this mesh size is set to free. And then the size for this will be 332 by 12. And I do want to slant. This does allow us to slant these edges. So I'll go to the left slant and right slant and set both of those to 33. To position this, we'll go to Location. And the position for it on the X will be 0, on the Y will be 64, and on the Z will be a negative 54. Now this is a flat 2D shape, so we want to add some geometry to this, so we'll extrude it. So with it selected, we can go up into the operator stack and add a modifier to it, Extrude. And that modifier there, of course, has the extrude depth set at 30. That's too much for what we're working with, so I'm going to bring that down to 7. And that should have us on the extrude. Now I do want to bevel the edges of this, similar to what the rest of the text is beveled. I'm going to jump out of the camera right here and zoom in. And you'll notice that we have sharp edges here. And I want to keep the sharp edges on the end, but I want to bevel this edge here and this edge right here. We can add a modifier to that, but it doesn't quite accomplish what I want. And I'll show you that. I'm going to add modifier and bevel and bring that up just a little bit. I'll set that to 2 and then also 4 on our edges. And it bevels all the way around. That will work for other things, but for what I'm creating, I want to keep these edges sharp. So this modifier is not going to work for me. So what I'm going to have to do is convert this to a static mesh like we did with this text here, and then bevel these edges in modeling mode. So to do that with this selected, I'm going to jump up here and move to modeling mode right there and go to transform like we did earlier. And I'm going to convert this to a static mesh, hit accept. You'll see now in our motion design outliner that that is considered a static mesh rectangle now. And I'll go ahead and label that bar 1. So we're now going to need to bevel this edge and then also apply a material to it. So these will be 2 tasks that we're about to do. I'm going to come over here to modeling mode, select it, and I'm going to do polygroup edit. You'll see that we can easily select these 2 edges. So I'll hover over the first one, click on it, and then come down to the bottom and shift click that one. So those 2 edges are selected. Now in our polygroup edit, I'll come down to edge edits, and we want to bevel that. So I'll select bevel, And my bevel distance, I want it to be set to 1.5 and the subdivision set to 3. And now I'll accept that action and then accept the final polygroup edit. Now we can go to the side of it, take a look. You'll see that just this edge is beveled and then this edge is still sharp. The next thing we need to do is we need to make these two beveled edges their own material ID. Let's go to Attributes, select that, and you'll see that we have Edit Materials. I'm going to click on that button there. And I'm going to need to zoom in just a little bit more. So with the right mouse button and the W key, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. It might move a little fast. And this brush here may be much larger. So if you need to adjust this brush size here, jump up into the brush size option here and set it to 0.001. And it'll bring it way down because otherwise you'll be selecting too much geometry. And then what I want to do is I am going to move using my right mouse button and the D key. I'm going to slide down here a little bit and then zoom in and then just kind of reposition using my right and left mouse buttons so that I can see this a little bit better. And now I'm going to focus on this section here, selecting those faces. And if I select too much, what I can do is hold down the Shift key to deselect an area that I don't need. I'm going to navigate down here just to kind of check that. Both ends looks good. And now what I'll do is go to the lower side of it and select that just by clicking. Looks like maybe I did get a little bit more than I need. So again, Shift, deselect that. So now I have just both of those edges there. With both of those beveled edges selected, back in our panel over here, I need to add a material to this. You see that I have just the base material, index 0 right there. So I'll click on this plus button right here for materials, add in this index 1, and then I need to select it right there in the active material. Make sure that it is the active material so that when I go and assign this active material to these two beveled edges, it'll be that index 1. So assign active material, you see that those edges now are highlighted in this dark gray, and I can accept that. I'll jump out of modeling mode and go back to motion design. And then over here in the motion design outliner, I'll select bar 1, and we can drop down now to its materials, and you'll see that it has the two material options. So for this first material, I'm going to add in the brushed aluminum. And for our second material there, I'm going to add in our blued steel. And so now that is taking on the same look as our text. Let me go back to our active camera and take a look at that. And so we have our first bar in there. So we've done most of the work at this point for that bar. All we need to do now is duplicate it and adjust its position for the other two bars. So I'll select bar 1, duplicate it. There's bar 2. And I can move now this one into place, changing the location. So in the details panel down here, we'll change the location to 0 by 55 by a -72. We'll go back up to bar 2 and duplicate it, Control D, and jump down to its location, and it'll be 0 by 45, tab over by a -90. And that has our 3 bars added in. So left from the original design, we have this ellipse right here to add in and the neon tube as well as the background. So let's go build those in. For that small ellipse, of course, we'll jump up here and start with the 2D shapes. And I'll click once and then a second time on the ellipse right there to add that in. And we'll make some adjustments to this. On the shape size, we'll come down here, make sure that that is set to free. And we'll adjust this to 310 and tab over by 170. We'll rotate that. So let's head back up to our location and rotation properties. And we'll rotate that on the X-axis by a -22. And it is positioned in front of everything, so we need to slide it back. So on our location x-axis, let's set that to 10. And on the y-axis, let's set that to 6. I do want to add a couple of modifiers to this to extrude it and to bevel it. So again, with it selected, we'll jump into the operator stack. Let's go ahead and add in our extrude. And we'll bring this way down to 6. And then we'll add in the bevel. And we'll bring the inset up to 2 and the iterations up to 2. And that's just going to round that edge, give it a little bit of thickness and round that edge. Now we need to apply a material to this. For the material that I want to add, I'm going to go into the content drawer. And at the beginning of this tutorial, I added all of the starter content. So most of that is right here. And then there's some in the engine. So there's materials that's already been added to the project. What I want is a glass material. So I'm going to go up here, make sure that all is selected, and type in glass. And it's going to bring up all of these options. You'll see I have this glass material right here. And I want to make a material instance of it. I'm going to double click on this to show you real quick. Here is how that glass material is built. It's a very detailed material. And as a material, it does not give us all of these properties that we can adjust. So I'm going to close that out, and back in the content drawer, I'm going to go to that glass material, right click on it, and create material instance. And we can just accept that as is. And so I'll double click on that. It opens up, and you'll see now we have a number of different properties that we can adjust. I want to change the color of this. So I'm going to go into the incandescence texture right there, and I'll check that box there, and then I'll adjust the color. I'm just going to bring it down into this yellow here and hit OK. And we can save that right there and then close out this box. Now I'm going to add that texture to this object. So here in my material properties for that object, I'll open up from simple, go to asset, and then I will navigate to that glass. And there is that glass instance right there, material instance right there. Select it, and it has now been added to that object. The next object we want to create is the neon tube. I'm going to go into 3D shapes for this one, and we're going to use a torus. So let me click once and then click a second time. We've added that torus in. Bring up my details here to take a look at it. And we'll shape this similar to the original ellipse. So in the properties, we do need to take a look at the shape for this. And we're going to adjust this inner size after we adjust the size of it. So let's set the mesh size. Let's set this to free. And on our X, we're going to set that to 287. Then we'll tab over. And on Y, it'll be 428. And then on Z, it'll be 287 again. Like I said, we're going to need to adjust the inner size right here. And we're going to bring this all the way up to 0.99. The next thing we need to do is rotate this. So on rotation X, we'll set that to 21 degrees. And on our location, we're going to need to drop this back behind a few of these objects. So let's set that to 12. And we'll set on our Y-axis to 6. Get that in place, and we're real close. I do want to make one more adjustment to our slices right here. We'll bring that up to 96. Again, that has to do with the rounding of this object to make it look much smoother on the rounding. For the neon tube, we are going to create one more material, and this is called an emissive material. It creates light itself. It's emissive. So to do that, let's go into our content drawer, and we'll need to navigate all the way up to the top to our folder for materials. And I need to cancel out my search for glass right there. There's the original material we made. So let's right click in here, and we will go to material. Let's call this neon yellow. Hit enter and double click on it. So to create this emissive material, we're going to use this property right here. And I need to start off with the color. So right out here, I'm just going to right click and we will do constant. And I'm going to use the constant vector 3. And that will set our color. So on the swatch right there, we can just double click and I'm just going to bring down to this yellow here and hit OK. So we need 2 more nodes here. I'm going to add another constant in right here. So just a single constant right there. This is going to be our amount of glow or amount of emission that we get from our yellow. To bring these two together, we're going to need a multiplier. So right click and type in multiply. And you'll see under math, multiply right there. And we will bring the main value from our color to A, and then our value from our constant to B, and then we'll connect those to the emissive color. At first, we don't see any change because we need to adjust the value here. And so we'll set that to 1, and we start to get some light coming from this yellow. The more that we increase that, the more we're going to get. So I can bring that up to 10. And let's apply this. Save it. We'll close this out. Now we can apply it to this torus. So select the torus and we'll drop down to the material, go from simple to asset, and we will search that. Neon, yellow right there. And now we have our yellow glowing neon. If you want to adjust that amount, you can simply go back to the content drawer, go back to that neon yellow, double click on it, and bring this off to the side a little bit, and you can adjust that amount. So we're getting real close. The last thing I want to add in is the back wall. For that, I'll go to 2D shapes and we will add in a simple rectangle. Click once, click a second time, drops that in, and we'll go to the shape size and we can constrain this one back together. And I'm just going to increase that up to 2000. So we want to push that back behind everything. So let's go up to our location and we'll set that on the x-axis to 18. We do need a material for this, and we downloaded it from Quixel Bridge. It's that brick material, that brick texture. So we'll go to material type, select simple, go to asset, and we will search for that brick. And we have a number of brick options in there, but the brick facade right there is the one that we want. Select it. The way that it has loaded in, the size is not what I want. So I can adjust this. This is a material instance. So I'm going to double click on the material from right here. It'll open up the material editor and you'll see my options over here. And I'm going to go into global, and the tiling is what we want to work with. I will select tiling, and then I'm going to open up my tiling options on the X and the Y axis. So that you can see how this works, I'm going to begin to scrub that up, and you can see the tiling begin to adjust. And I know I want to set this to 2.5, actually on both the X and the Y. Save that, and we'll jump back. And so the size of our brick looks a little bit more. So if you want to even adjust that more, actually I do. So I'm going to jump back in there, and I think I'll set that to 3. Save that and close it. That looks a lot better. You also have the option, because this is a little bit brighter than what I want. I'll jump back into the material and I'll go to albedo, and I'll jump down here to the albedo controls, and I'm going to bring the brightness down a little bit on that. And then maybe bring the saturation up just a little bit to make those colors look a little bit richer. So those are some options that you can play around with. Again, save that and close it. That looks a lot better. Now let's make some adjustments to the lighting. To go take a look at the lighting that we have in here at this point, I'm going to go into the default scene, open up our options right here, and you'll see that we have a skylight and a directional light. I'll first turn off the directional light, and the skylight is made up of this HDR right here. From this HDR, we get reflections in our materials and we get a little bit of lighting. I'm going to leave this here for now. You do have the option to change that out. You can find all kinds of different HDRIs, add them in, and there's some even loaded into the project. Just to show you that we are getting light from the skylight, I'm going to close that off. And now you see the only thing that's lighting the scene is the emissive neon tube. So now let me bring in the directional light, and we're getting most of our lighting from this. Now the directional light for this scene, I'm going to get rid of it. I don't want to use it for this scene. So let me click the skylight back on, and I'm going to delete this directional light. I am going to add in a spotlight. So I'm going to come over here, and I do have this tab for lights. If in case this has not shown up at this point, jump over here to motion design, this motion design scene tab right here. Click it off. It will ask you a question. Is that what you want to do? Just say yes, and then click it back on, and those three options should show up there. So under lights, I'm going to go to spotlight, just like everything else, kind of click on it slowly twice. And there is our spotlight added in. You'll see this little X right here. What we need to do is find that spotlight, select it, and we're going to change it from a static light to a movable light. That'll get rid of our X and any issues that might come up with that. Now you'll see that we have, like a spotlight, it is showing us the cone, the throw of the light that we will get from it. Let's make some adjustments to this spotlight. I'm going to adjust it. I will bring this up, but I'm going to go ahead and on our Z axis there, I'm going to set that to 378. That's going to bring that spotlight up. You begin to see that we're getting a little bit of light from it right there at the top. I'm going to bring it forward closer to us. So I'm going to set on the X axis to a negative 475. And I'm going to leave the Y at 0. For rotation, I'm going to set X at 0, and I'm going to adjust the Y to a negative 38. That's going to angle it more towards the back wall. And I'll jump out of the scene and swing around to show you how this is coming together. So you see our spotlight up there, our back wall, our sign, and the throw of the light is facing the logo. I'll jump back into our camera and drop down here to our light settings. I'm going to change this to a slight yellow, just a very slight yellow. Hit OK on that. And for our intensity, we're going to increase this quite a bit, up to 32,000. And we'll make some adjustments on the radius here. The attenuation radius, we're going to bring that up to 2,500. And then we'll work with the inner and the outer cone. So on the inner cone, I'm going to set that to 32. So there is an inner and an outer cone, and I'll explain that to you in just a minute. And on the outer cone, I'm going to set that to 35. And for our source radius here, let's bring this up to 250. So we are starting to create a look here. And what I need to do now at this point, since I have this light in, I'm going to drop down back to our skylight, and the intensity on it, the intensity scale on it, I'm going to drop it down to 0.25. So there you see now how this spotlight is beginning to create the look for the scene. I'll go back up to the spotlight and we'll take a look at the cone and how this is working. So the inner cone and the outer cone work together. So if I bring the inner cone out to the outer cone, you see that we get this very hard edge for the light. But the more that I bring the inner cone in and further away from the outer cone, we get that fall off there, a nice soft edge on the lighting. So I'm going to add one more light in. Back over here to our lights, I'm going to add a rect light in. And same with it. Let me go select it, go to its properties, and we need to change that to movable. And we'll bring it closer to us. So we're going to draw this out into a negative number. And that location will actually be a negative 265. And everything else will be 0 because I do want this center, because I'm just trying to add a little bit of light to the letters. I'm going to bring the intensity down to 1000. And my attenuation radius, I'm going to bring this way up to 4075. And then the width and the height on this is going to be increased greatly. So the width of this, I'm going to set to 600. And the height of this, I'm going to set to 520. And that's just really smoothing out our light so that we don't have a real intense center, but it's spreading it out all over our text. I do want to turn off casting shadows for this. So I'm going to drop down here and you'll see the option cast shadows. We'll deselect it. So that just takes out some of the shadows that I don't want and leaves me with the shadows that I do want. To get rid of that annoying little icon right there, I'm going to take us out of game mode and just hit the G key, select the scene and hit the G key. And now we can see our scene as we've created it. So to save the project, you can do a Control S and Control Shift S to make sure that we save everything in the scene. I hope everything that we've gone over so far has been helpful. To animate this, I'm going to continue in another tutorial, so be sure to check that out. For more on Unreal Engine's motion design tools, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button.